Hello, hello.
Good morning, Valko.
Good night.
Good night.
I'm
You still in Tokyo?
I'm still in Tokyo. I get back home, or I leave here on Saturday. Then back to
Oh,
regular
wow, okay.
hours.
It's a long trip then.
Yeah, it's been like 12 days. It's so amazing. I stayed in like four different neighborhoods, all in Tokyo, but it's great. Like I definitely need to come back. Like I think this year, like it was just so good.
Nice, nice. Welcome,
Lorepunk,
Lorepunk.
how are you?
Hey, GM, it's good to see you. I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
All good, all good. Over here, it's the middle of the day and it's sunny, so pretty good, pretty good.
So I'm gonna toss
Yeah,
this into a few. I'm gonna toss a tweet out. I'm gonna toss a few group DMs out. Get the room full, and let's jump into this combo.
Yeah, I'll pin the space thing on top here, and then everyone can share it. I'll just have to find how to do that.
Lorepunk, where are you right now?
I am sitting in my sunny garden at my house, so hopefully it's not too noisy. But I just wanted to get out in the sunshine while I had my call with you. And yeah,
Twitter Spaces are always,
Not
I think, a good opportunity to be with nature and your device.
absolutely, absolutely. So I'm going to go share this in a couple of different spots.
Yeah, if you guys can retweet the pinned tweet I put on the top over there, that'd be cool. And guys in the audience as well, so we can bring a couple of more folks in.
So did you do NFT NYC this year, Lorepunk, or you skipped?
I didn't go to NFT NYC. I'm based in the UK,
Oh, that's a journey.
and I've got a lot of family responsibilities that keeps me pretty close to home. But it looked like it was a really cool event this year, and a bit more intimate and a bit more time to connect, which sounded good.
Yeah, I forgot you were there. You told me that a while ago. I definitely forgot, but I was actually just in London last weekend. I didn't have an inkling of free time. Otherwise, I would be having serious regrets about not saying hello. But I hope to get back out there again. London's such a good city. Are you close to London or like?
I'm actually in Devon, so if you look at kind of a map of the UK. I'm in the lower left corner
Hmm,
of the map. So it's about 4 hours from London.
by car?
But uh, yeah, by car or by train, 3 or 4 hours.
Is Devon
So
where Exeter is?
yeah, Devon is where Exeter is, Exeter, Plymouth, and places like that. And I'm in Plymouth. So yeah, it's really beautiful here. We've got the ocean. We've got Dartmoor, which is these gorgeous, gorgeous moorlands just outside the city. It's one of the greenest cities in the UK, and so yeah, we're really happy. It's a really good place to live and work.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, I'm like I'm hoping I can spend some more time in the UK, like maybe like a little month-long stint. I think it would do me good.
Well, if you do that, I'm very always happy to meet punks and to sort of give any advice I have about the area for traveling punks. It's just so cool to meet people in the real world from the NFT space because it's such an online activity, but there's all these amazing people behind it.
Yeah, I always say meeting people with the same JPEGs as you IRL is a magical experience. And that's why I go to these conferences. It's really the best.
There was a punk meetup 2-3 weeks ago, I think, in London. Did you manage to attend that one, Lorepunk?
No, I saw that as well, but I was on deadline. I've got, a lot of writing work that I do, and sometimes you just have a massive deadline and you need a lot of space and mental energy to finish it. So I always put my clients and colleagues first, even before going out and having a hell of a lot of fun with other punks. But I do want to make sure that I make time to meet folks in person going forward.
Writing's one of those
Oh,
things.
nice.
Like, I'm still like, I think like a pretty beginner writer. Like in high school, I actually like, I was such a math and science guy, and I hated writing, because it was always like felt like a job, and I never got to like express myself. It was always kind of like within the bounds or the context of the class. But like I've grown to love writing. I obviously like love writing on Twitter and like writing threads, like writing emails, like blah 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 blah. But that being said, like I still feel like I'm not quite the writing machine I need to be. Like, it takes me a lot of time, I think. I mean, maybe it just takes everyone this much time, unclear, to write things. But when I'm not able to like really like get in the zone and like have no distractions, and whether that's someone texting me or calling me or like coworkers walking up to me, like if there are any like realm of like distractions, like it's just like it takes me 10 times as long as it normally would to write things. I mean, it's insane. Like you really, at least I really like have to focus for that stuff. But other work, like I have no problem working in like kind of noisy environments. It's kind of weird. Writing is just strange like that, at least for me.
It's a really interesting kind of piece of information there. So I probably, if I tried to write a bunch of code, I would need absolute, cathedral of silence and no distractions around me. But for me, writing is something, oftentimes I'll just be working on it in a noisy environment, or just while I'm waiting in a queue, or I'm on hold for a phone call or something like that. And I think it's just, that's a skill that I have put in my core, thousands of hours in. So I've got a bit of muscle memory and a bit of experience for it. But, so I'm sure that there's plenty of skills that you have that are the same, that you've put the thousands of hours in. But it's really just sort of a sense of practice.
Yeah,
Like I
got
will
to get the
make
reps in.
myself write every day. Yeah, you got to get the reps in, exactly.
Yeah, I've finally built like a pretty strong daily writing habit, but it's taken a freaking long time. And like I think really like anything, it's just like the hardest part, whether it's writing or not, is putting the pen to paper. And I think writing really like makes that harsh reality kind of true. Because once you start, like everything just flows. And that really is true. Like even when I exercise, I tell myself like, oh well, just go walk like for 60 seconds, just go walk to the corner and back. And then you inevitably are like, oh yeah, fuck it. Like I'll walk for like a half an hour.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's sort of a question of executive function, which is this neurological thing in our brains that you can be sitting there, you want to do the task, you need to do the task, you'll feel better when you have finished doing the task, but you're just sitting there scrolling on Twitter and you're not doing the task. And that isn't, a lack of character or laziness or anything like that. That is a barrier to your executive function, which is actually a skill, actually a facility that we all have, a sense of smell or what have you, and it's part of the brain. And if you're stressed, if you're tired, if you've got certain neurodivergence like ADHD or whatever, if you've got depression, if you're not getting adequate nutrition or stress or whatever, can impact the executive function. And there's all kinds of little tricks, and of course there's medical support that you can use to get over it. But once you start it actually works really well. Like sometimes if I don't want to write something, I'll be like, okay, well I can open up this Google Doc and I can put in the headers for all the points that I want to cover, and make an outline for myself. And I'm just going to do that for 5 minutes.
Right. I've read the
And
prep
yeah,
the page tip on so many threads, and I probably should practice that a little bit more. Like prep the page one phase, batch that work, then draft another phase, and then like edit completely separately.
Absolutely, absolutely. Or, just linkify. Like, okay, I've got like these links that I want to make sure I include in this article. So I'm going to dump them all at the bottom of this Google Doc or whatever.
Mm.
Just getting started, priming the pump and getting. Oh, is everything okay there?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay, just heard a loud noise. But yeah, just priming the pump and getting started, everything like that, is a really good way to do it. And the other concept that I use is it's from the book Bird by Bird, which is a really famous writing guide, and it's called The Shitty First Draft. Like, your first draft is going to be shitty, it's going to suck. And you just write it and just write it, just keep pushing forward, don't get distracted, don't stop and be like, wow, that's a really lousy sentence, just keep going and then come back later and fix it.
Yeah. Oh man, it sounds so simple, but it really is easier said than done. It's I trace. I, I I go backwards too often. I just need to just dump information forward. All right. Well, everybody, thanks for being here. It's we're 14 minutes in, so I think it's time to hop on into this. If you can share the tweet, invite your friends. The more the merrier. If you're a punk, happy to have you here up on stage, or really anybody else. But we're excited to welcome our friend Lorepunk. I have not had the pleasure of meeting Lorepunk IRL, but I have done some video chats with her, and just really excited to have her up here, and share a little bit of her wisdom with everybody here.
I'm super happy to be here. And thank you very much.
Forever Punks, have you met Lorepunk? Have you guys met IRL or no?
Not in person, but yeah, Lorepunk, you're one of the people I see the most on my Twitter. I don't know, like the algorithm thinks you're like super relevant to my stuff. So maybe my first question would be like, where did the name Lorepunk come from, and the background to your PFP? Can you tell me a bit more about that, because I see it all the time?
Yeah, sure, and I'm really glad that the algorithm is sticking my silly content under your snoot. Thank you, Mr. Musk. I got the name Lorepunk because in summer of 2021, I was very stressed out about how volatile ETH was. So I took some of that ETH and I bought a punk as kind of a hedge on ETH. And then getting the punk was an amazing door opener for me into the punks community. So I thought, I'm going to make this punk the flagship of my business. And my business is all things writing in Web3, everything from story design, story architecting, to writing tweets, to writing for a website and all kinds of strategy stuff. So I thought, I want to say the truth, which is I'm a Web3 native. I'm deeply committed to this space, and lore and storytelling is what I offer to the space. So I came up with Lorepunk as my personal brand. And, I got the lorepunk.eth ENS. And it's just really been everything that I could ask for in a brand. The punk is instantly recognizable. I love all of you apes, but I cannot tell you apes apart from other apes, where I can instantly recognize people by their punk. For instance, I can tell the difference between Forever Punk and Dr. Crypto's punk, even though they've got a lot of similarities. So I just thought I'd really lean into that, and it works really, really well. The background that I have, my friend Pixel Crow did for me, because I wanted to kind of, I love all the hexagon backgrounds and the kind of color backgrounds for punks set by Larva Labs, but I wanted to make mine especially distinctive. So he made me this background, and I was absolutely mad for fidenzas at the time. So he made me a fake denza, which also has some kind of Soviet constructivism kind of vibes going on. So that is my background, and I like it a lot. And I used to change my PFP all the time before Mr. Musk decided that if you do that, you lose your blue tick. So now I don't change it, and everyone gets to see this background.
No, pretty cool. I mean, you definitely are one of those who I never see these days changing PFP, and I think that's easier to follow along as a follower. And I see your banner is for Forgotten Runes. That has been that for a while as well. Are you like deep into that project as well, or what's the story there?
I am very deep into that project. You know, Punks is one of my main homes in the space, and Forgotten Runes is the other one. I am just so 100% by the team and the community. I sold my last check last week, and I bought another wizard because Bear Snake, who's one of the main principals of Forgotten Runes, just teased a partnership with Epic Games. So I was like, holy shit balls, I need to buy another wizard. But I've been involved with Forgotten Runes for a long time, since before the project launched, writing lore with them. So I've been writing these classical poems, which are called sonnets, for individual wizards and other items in the collection. And so I've got a collection called Poetry of the Forgotten Runes, and I've written dozens of poems for people's individual wizards and stuff. I was one of the earliest contributors to the kind of collaborative lore meta that they are pioneering, that they have sort of innovated on, which is their specialty in the space. So yeah, that's your alpha. Go buy wizards and warriors. Not financial advice, of course.
Nice, nice. I mean, I've been following this project from the sidelines, like just the side of my eyes. But like, can you tell us a bit more detail what it is? Is it like a blockchain game, or is it like what is it exactly?
So, Forgotten Runes is something they call a collaborative legendarium. So, it's a fantasy world with magic and, all kinds of cool history and rivalries and stuff like that. But it's really designed by, as much by the community as by the founders of the project. The core tokens, the most important tokens in the project, are 10,000 wizards. There's fewer of those now because some of them have been burned to create Forgotten Souls. There's wizards, warriors, beasts, souls, and all kinds of things. There's a book of lore, which is on chain, that if you own one of the tokens, you can write visual and textual lore and add it in for a gas only transaction. They've got a bunch of integrations. They're integrated, one of the earliest integrations, into World Wide Web 3, a game by hacker.eth. But there's also a game called the Runiverse, which is being developed right now, and they are working on getting like a show, like a cartoon show. They've got some very serious writers for that. But the amazing thing is that they've just been steadily building in public in the middle of the bear market. And wizards have basically turned into kind of like a stable coin, where they're each worth an ETH, and no matter what the market is doing. The core token, the wizards, hold steady, and that's a real vote of confidence in the team and in the community. So yeah, absolutely love them.
Nice, nice.
Yeah,
So,
they're constantly popping up on my feed. Like I've always enjoyed the art a bit. I should jump into the lore. Like so this lore book is that like largely led by you, or is it there are other contributors to it?
It's I wouldn't say it's led by me at all. It's structured by the team, and many more people have contributed a lot more lore than me. I was one of the earliest contributors. But anybody who holds one of these tokens can write in the book of lore, in the book of lore about their token. Um,
Oh wow, that's
and
cool.
so you can just go to their website and start paging through it, and you see really amazing stuff. I mean, some of it's kind of low effort, but the vast majority of it is really, really deeply thought through by the creators of the lore. And there's been a lot of kind of concepts, a lot of characters, a lot of story arcs that have really been taken up and adopted by the community and the team as a whole that have come out of the Book of Lore. Yeah, I could talk about wizards all day, but I totally encourage people to check out their Twitter, and they have a weekly space called Wizard Wednesday, and these spaces all get recorded and there's written summaries of them. But if you start going through their Twitter and listening to some of these spaces, you get a really good sense of the project.
Okay, so you told us about how you were drawn to punks, which is ETH felt volatile, and you viewed punk as a hedge, which I think is a very like reasonable. I've often had similar thoughts. My entry to punks is a little bit different, but I've acquired more punks through the same logic. But my question for you is like, given your background, obviously, like you are like a prolific writer, and it sounds like I get the vibe like you're also like an academic, and you're a mother or like a family person. I don't know. I don't want to like write your story for you, but just kind of like reading between the lines here. What was your like? Okay, I'm trying to piece together like your background and how you got like deep into ETH and had that as really your on ramp into like CryptoPunks, I guess. Because for me, it was like Bitcoin first, and then like music school, and like appreciating the creator economy, and then I was like, oh, these NFT things are like kind of cool. But I'd be curious to hear like what was your like orange pill, I guess, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I mean, I've been interested in crypto since like 2012. I'm definitely politically on the left. I'm coming at this all from a perspective of, how can we make it so more and more of the world can enjoy freedom? And, I think decentralized, immutable currency is a huge part of that. And you can see now all kinds of states, right, left, center, whatever, are freaking out about digital currency because they lose control, and that is something we all have to remember. So, I've always dabbled off and on in crypto. And, so many times I've just sold all my crypto and just gotten out of it and then gotten back in at a later date. And really, I was stressed out from my day job and I needed a hobby. In the beginning of 2021, I needed a hobby that had nothing whatsoever to do with my day job. So I took a small position in ETH and Bitcoin, and just thought I'd do a bit of trading and stuff like that. And then I read about Beeple's massive sale for the first 5,000 days. And then I was like, oh my goodness, NFTs, this is really cool. And, fortunately, at the same time, I got an invite to Clubhouse, and I got onto NFT Clubhouse in the amazing kind of golden early days of 2021. And I just started talking and offering people help with their writing because artists need writing. The internet is a text mediated space. And so you need to have good writing, whether it's your art description on your OpenSea profile or whether it's tweets, whether it's a story to bring this collection of PFPs that you're making to life. I did a lot of work for free, and I still do, for people coming from the margins, maybe who don't have English as their first language. I'm happy to help with that. And then through that, I met Dario De Siena. He didn't have his punk at the time, but, he helped me out, gave me so much promotion and connected me to so many people. And I've, been doing work for him off and on ever since. But yeah, I'm full time Web3 now. I don't think I'd ever be interested in going back to Normie land, as a primary role or employment. I just love the freedom of being self employed and of joining new projects, being flexible so much, and all the different great values in the space.
Okay, here's another question because I'm like diehard, I guess like newly found solopreneur. Like I've had salaried gigs since I graduated college. I've worked for venture capital funds. I've worked at startups. I've advised startups, and then finally I was like, man, I really like these startups, like, to the point where I left venture capital to go work at a startup. And then I was working at a startup and I was like, wow, like, it's so cool that these people start their own things and like weave their own fate. Like, I got to try this. So I quit my job and like started my own thing. And now I'm just like, I'm such a big proponent of this solopreneur lifestyle. And like, that happened to happen to me, like, while I was in Web3 and after I had taken the leap from general venture capital to like working at a Web3 startup. But I like to think I would have like ended up here anyways. But do you think that Web3 played a big part in you becoming like a self-employed solopreneur or freelancer, or was that like something you've been doing for a while and like you feel like you would have kind of ended up here anyways?
I have been, this. I like this whole concept of a solopreneur. I kind of see it as like I'm a hunter sitting in the woods. I'm like a cat. I'm holding very still. I'm watching everything around me. And when a big, prey animal walks by, I'm going to spring on it and I'm going to bring it down. You know, if I'm just sitting there scrolling around on Twitter, looking at what's up, what's available, going on Telegram, going on Discord, I'm looking at the ecosystem, I'm looking at the environment, and I'm figuring out what's going on. I've been a freelancer off and on my whole life. Self-employed writing. I've written for national and international sort of news and opinion journalism. I've done all kinds of commercial copywriting, self-employed, and stuff like that. But the amount of kind of churn and innovation and flexibility and creativity that you see in the Web3 space is just incredibly compelling to me. It's a lot more fun than coming up with a bunch of journalism pitches with news hooks on them, pitching them. 90% of the time, you don't even get a response. And then, you do your article and you get paid like maybe a couple $100 if you're lucky. It's chicken feed. Whereas here, if you're able to collaborate and team up with people, you might get loads of money, but even at the worst case scenario, you can ask for what you're worth and get some decent compensation to do your work. So I'm incredibly lucky to be here and to be able to do that. And I think the community nature of the space made that possible.
I love the analogy of the cat in the woods because I don't feel quite like a cat in the woods exactly, but something I always say to people is like one of the hardest things about being a solopreneur, or frankly, an entrepreneur or whatever, a freelancer, whatever you want to call it, somebody that's self employed, is like you really gotta like you're bringing the food to the table, like you're securing every kill, and there's this kind of fear, like at least for me with my consulting firm, right? Like I've got these clients, they pay me well, and like I fought really hard to get them, but like at any moment I could lose them, and it's it's like you put yourself in a situation where you're starving. It's like it's not like you have a role in a village and like the village leaders make sure you're fed. Like you are responsible for every single part of your business, and if you screw something up, like it's on you. You can't blame anyone, and that like puts you in kind of a survival mindset that I can't really compare to anything else. So it definitely is like being a predator or like a hunter gatherer. I think in so many ways, it's a really good analogy.
Absolutely. And I think what you're saying about the kind of mindset and the fear is very, very important. I have this problem. I will wake up early in the morning, in a miasma of worry and imposter syndrome, and then be like, okay, I've been to therapy. I've got some emotional intelligence skills. What am I going to do to actually address this problem? And so, I called up my accountant and I was like, okay, I need a fucking pension. Because I'm worried about, dying old or whatever and not having any money, not having any support. So what can I do about that? I'm going to get a pension. What else can I do about it? I can network with community. I can be open about the stuff that I'm concerned about. And, what's the other thing? You can, the village isn't going to look out for us. Well, that's fine. Maybe we're the village, maybe we can look out for each other. Like I think about the amazing organizing that came around when Crypto Novo got scammed and lost his punks. to get him his, his PFP identity, his flagship punk back. That was no floor punk. That was an expensive ass punk. Um, and what is that if not the village jumping in and intervening? So I think multiple things can be true at the same time. We are all responsible for our own businesses. If we make mistakes, we can't necessarily blame someone else for them. But I think it's also totally okay to own your mistakes, to acknowledge them, and to ask for help. I don't like the whole kind of dog eat dog kind of social Darwinism concepts that some people have. I'm very happy to help people. I'm very happy to give people things for free. And I've had a lot of favors from a lot of punks. A lot of punks have given me a chance. A lot of other members of the community have given me a chance, and so I think there's room for both of those mindsets.
You basically described my morning at the beginning there. I was laughing because I wake up with this like tremendous sense of anxiety around like what am I doing? I need to like work harder. Like I'm not working hard enough. I'm like, it's a sort of imposter syndrome, I suppose, that I try to work through.
Agreed, absolutely. And it's part of us. It's literally programmed into our culture. There's an incredible book by a gentleman who's passed away named Mark Fisher. And the book is called Capitalist Realism. And it's basically about this concept of extreme self reliance, that if there's a mistake, it's your fault. If you're depressed, you have to fix it. If you're anxious, you have to fix it. There isn't any room for the social kind of analysis of why that's happening. There isn't any, people talk about self care, go touch grass or whatever, but, the culture that we have doesn't talk about community care. How can we make ourselves safe as a community? How can we make ourselves free as a community? So, I mean, it's not the sort of book that people often will talk about in the crypto space, but I highly recommend that people go and take a look at it, because it's very comforting to know that, your fear is something that's kind of been programmed into you. And once you have that knowledge, you can do a lot to combat it.
Yeah, I love that. And I started this like community recently, V3 Collective. And like part of it was just like being a solopreneur is it's like lonely. It's hard. Like you work from home. I live alone. Like I don't have a family. My girlfriend lives in New York. I live in Nashville, Tennessee, and so like I wanted just like some sort of like support system, even if it was like a little group chat. But like and I've got the CryptoPunks chat. I've got my V1 CryptoPunks chat. I've got all these NFT communities that have like been that for me, but I wanted to make that one that was like a little bit more specific to like my niche and who I was, while simultaneously helping to create basically more of us. Like after like quitting my job and um, you know doing my own thing, I had this like kind of realization like, oh my gosh, like it might be scary and it's definitely like not for everyone, but I think everybody has it in them to do it. You just have to get over this mental barrier to like honestly bet on yourself. And I think freedom really begins with betting on yourself. There's just this like kind of hard like leap of faith that you have to take at the beginning. So I created this community to kind of like be my own little, I don't know, like or each other's like little therapist group, but also like coaches and mentors, and almost like an accelerator to just like make an army essentially of Web3 solopreneurs to ultimately accelerate blockchain adoption, because like it all starts with my highest level belief that blockchain is the most freedom enabling technology in the world. Because like I agree with you. You said earlier, like, you think it's this like very powerful thing and it like aligns with kind of like this like left mindset, but like, I think it has something to offer for like really everyone. Like, there's like the hardcore, like people on the right who believe in like, whatever, like really hardcore, like I guess capitalism and like fiscal conservativeness. And like I think in many ways, like crypto is something for them too. And so like I just view it as this like beautifully freedom enabling technology that I want to like really just help accelerate. And I think a lot of people focus on strange ways to accelerate. Well, maybe not strange ways. Like people focus on some of the more obvious ways, like fix the UI, like improve the storytelling, remove the technical barriers, and like these are all important things. Don't get me wrong, but I think one thing people forget about is like, well, what if we just like empower more small businesses and like micro entrepreneurs? Like it's just like I've said this on previous spaces, but it's like it's death by a thousand paper cuts. You know what I mean?
It's really interesting, and I really appreciate you sharing so much of your own perspective in this as well. I think that there is a lot that to unite people from various political persuasions about crypto. It's a technology. It's like the telegraph. It's like DNA. It's like electricity. It is a tool. It can be used for good. It can be used for evil. One thing that I like to tell people is, if you think about what maybe led into the crypto boom of 2021, and that a lot of that was the stimulus that was given to a lot of Americans during COVID. A lot of people invested that. They invested it in retail stocks. They invested it in crypto, and there was a huge community, through crypto Twitter and all kinds of other places, Reddit, that help people educate themselves, learn about wallet safety, learn about technology, and learn how to invest. Um, and, having that stimulus gave a lot of people the confidence to be like, okay, I'm going to take a risk. I'm going to do some investing. I might start my own business, entrepreneurship in this space. And that really led to a bunch of cool things. So I kind of think about what can we do to make that happen on a broader scale, and stuff like universal basic income, stuff like access to healthcare, access to housing, access to food, access to education, and stuff like that, access to child and elder care. All of that is so important because people are not going to sit around with their thumbs up their asses when their basic needs are met. Do you know what they're going to do? They're going to innovate, because that's literally what happens. The next technology could be created by somebody in the global south who doesn't have access to the infrastructure and the resources needed to become an entrepreneur. So we can help each other on an individual to individual basis, on a community to community basis, but if we can really make sure that people have enough on a broad scale, then we're not going to get sameness. We're not going to get stagnation. We're going to get a Cambrian explosion of creativity and innovation in every sphere of life.
I've been thinking about this a lot recently. I'll admit, like I've always been a long time skeptic of like the premise of universal basic income. Like I guess the pessimist in me or realist in me, whatever you want to call it, thinks it's like too much of a dream, too much of a utopia. It can never be possible. Maybe I am one of those Darwinistic people you were describing earlier who thinks there's just this power distribution in the world, and like there's the survival of the fittest, and then there's the weak, and there's the wolves, and then there's the sheep. Blah 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 blah. But like what you're describing to me, like I totally understand, and I've been thinking about it so much because when you can get really creative, really when you can get anybody, frankly, off like the hamster wheel that is life, and you can free up their brain and their mind to just like sit and think and kind of like really naturally flow to where they should be, where their zone of genius, what they want to be doing, making the impact they want to make. Like I think that's truly where they achieve great things. And I think we've all felt this at times. Like sometimes you're just feeling like you're trying to like keep your head above water, and it's just like so incredibly difficult. And then like days, weeks, months, heck, years go by until you're able to like really take a pause, and like maybe it's a job change, maybe it's a move, maybe it's a relationship breakup or something. Like these life-changing events, these transitions sometimes are the wake-up call and the slap in the face you need to be like, well, oh shit, like you know I need to hop off this hamster wheel, um, and I need to like do this instead because this is like my calling. This is what I want to do, but it's so hard. And for many, it's like, it's impossible because like, you really, you have these fears and you need to survive, and there are basic needs that have to be met. And so I've been at DAO Tokyo like this whole week, and there's actually been a lot of discussion within the context of like DAOs and nation states, right? Or and network states, whatever you want to call yeah, network states, um, of like, okay, how can like universal basic income be used to reserve people's time almost, provide their basic needs so that they can think creatively to contribute to the greater good of this DAO and this DAO's mission. And then from there, you have some further upside in the form of like maybe retroactive payments, because people talk about retroactive payments for DAOs a lot, where it's like, okay, you finish a thing, you show us that you finish a thing, that it made an impact, and now there's some retroactive performance based compensation. But like, it's hard for people to do that when it's going to take weeks, months, heck, maybe years for them to get paid for the work they did. Like, they need to have the freedom to like even reserve the time to do it. And so I've been like really just kind of playing around with this idea of the combination of a universal basic income within the context of DAOs combined with like bigger bounties and retroactive payments for when like the realization of the project is met, and that kind of you free up people's time with the UBI, and then you have these retroactive payments to like act as like a greater incentive and reward for whatever impact, really not even good behavior but impact. So uh, I don't know, it's kind of a big mess of ideas in my head. I've like been drinking from the fire hose all week, but I definitely plan to like drop some threads on it, do more research on it in the coming weeks, because I think it's like a really exciting uh, area. But again, I'm also still so skeptical of it because like I'm the last person who would even be having these thoughts like 2 weeks ago, but here I am.
Well, that's really cool, and I really appreciate a lot of what you're saying. I think the way that I think about it is about risk. Who has the privilege of taking a risk? Who has the privilege of taking time to build something? And I want to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to take a risk. And if they fail, which most things do, you have to fail over and over and over and over and over and over again. But, if you don't have the risk of being made homeless or starving, if you fail, then I think that that's a great thing. I think we'll have a more healthy appetite to risk. I think we'll have more risk taking. I think we'll have more innovation, more creativity, more constructive, useful, progressive failures.
Yeah, it's I forget the tweet or the quote, but it's like, like most people get one dart to throw at the dartboard, and they might hit a bullseye, they might not. There's like a bit of luck involved, a bit of skill involved. But like when you're rich or you have a lot of money, you get like potentially infinite throws at the dartboard. And then when you get the hit, you're like, wow, look at that. Like, I'm so talented, aren't I? Well, it's like, well, yeah, you are talented and you did do that. And like, good job. But like, also, like, you had 10 darts and that kid only had one or none.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And, I want to have the opportunity to give my skills away, to give what I know about Web3 and storytelling away as well. If there is universal access to that basic safety net, then I think people will be a lot more free with their knowledge. They'll be innovating and trying to build things that really solve a problem, but they'll also be pulling people up with them because everyone will be seen as less of a competitor and more of a colleague, more of a collaborator.
Oh, so many exciting things. Trevor Punk, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I love that metaphor with the dart, and also like on social media, maybe Twitter, there's a lot of like survival bias. Like we see only the winners, those that hit the dart, but we never really see those who missed and the failure stories. And it'd be cool to like see a bit more of that for sure. But I see there's a lot of like new people in the audience, so if anyone wants to request a mic, hop up, say hi, share your thoughts, feel free to do that.
And I'm really happy to answer people's questions about how you can work in Web3 as a writer, what the role of writing is in good Web3 projects, whether it's a degen project or fine art. Happy to answer any questions or hear any thoughts.
Lorepunk, I maybe have a question myself, and I'm sure recently you've been getting this a lot. So you're obviously doing a lot of writing, and the hot topic these days has been AI and ChatGPT. What's your thought on that and how it kind of impacts, writing as such?
I am both in awe and deep respect of the Chat GPT and the other technologies that are out there. And I'm also very conscious of their limitations. So it really depends on what you want your writing for. If your writing is simply padding on a website to sort of get SEO rankings, then yeah, you can use Chat GPT with no problem. But when you're a subject matter expert or you're trying to transmit knowledge in a very precise and specific way, you can look at the outputs from Chat GPT, GPT-4, what have you, and you can see that there is a lot of factual errors, and they're often shared with great confidence, great sort of lexical confidence from the large language model in that output. So I think that, with the level of debate that we're having and discussion that we're having about, language models and Chat GPT, that I think there will be both huge opportunities to work with it, and then there will also be kind of a strengthening of the consciousness of wanting often to hire writers that aren't using Chat GPT. So, there's still going to be a huge market for people who write the old fashioned way. I use GPT as a writer, not integrating it in my text, but often as a check, like, what am I missing? What am I forgetting that's so obvious to me, but I'm forgetting to mention it in here? It's a good reminder for that. If I'm writing poetry, GPT-3 is kind of shit at poetry. GPT-4 is a lot better. And I'm quite fascinated by that. And sometimes, I will never use anything directly from the outputs, but it might inspire me to come at a concept in a poem from a different angle. But yeah, don't trust GPT when it's giving you advice, because sometimes it's full of BS and it's very confident about it.
Interesting. So seemingly you've played around with it quite a bit and have a fair amount of thoughts. Brian, I see you hopped up on stage. How's it going?
It's going well, man. I'm really enjoying the conversation. The concept of solopreneur is relatively new to me, and though I've been doing aspects of it for a long time, but yeah, I've just really enjoyed listening to folks' journey and how they're kind of navigating it. It's I took that step a couple of years ago. I left PricewaterhouseCoopers as a director, and I've kind of stepped into being an artist full time, and it's just I wish I had done it in my 20s, though I had to learn all those lessons to get to where I am. But I wish I had done it 20 years ago.
I hear that a lot, Brian. One thing I rarely hear, or frankly, I've never heard it, but never say never. But one thing I've never heard is, I regret betting on myself. I hear that maybe in the context of like, I regret making this financial bet, but everybody I've met pretty much expresses what you just said. Like, I wish I just did it sooner. And it doesn't have to be that like, 0 to 100, like quit your job, don't have income for a few weeks or months or years, and then all of a sudden like you're doing it. Like it really can start with something so small. The shame is like it's so easy to get sucked into your job and like really being just like on the hamster wheel that is life and not making time to plant that little seed, whatever it may be. And so I am just like on like a mission to like encourage the hell out of everyone to just carve a little bit of their time out to just try something, experiment with something, plant that seed, because you know like the sooner you start, the more you learn, and you can play, their game while you build your game, and then eventually you'll hit that influx where it's like, well, shit, I can really do this on my own, and that is like, I mean, it's just a magical experience.
I'm looking at your work here, Brian, and it's just beautiful. What you're doing with reflections and transparency is actually really incredible. And, I've seen your stuff around the space for a long time. You've got a really coherent and accomplished style and a really strong brand. And I think what people need to remember is all of those skills and all of those kind of experiences and connections that you made in the Web 2 world apply to Web 3. So, the best models of communication, the models of building a brand, the models of engaging with your audience, building community, the model of having something coherent to say is absolutely the case. Everything in human experience is storytelling, whether it's written or visual storytelling, whether it's PricewaterhouseCoopers or this kind of badass rainbow crystal skull. It's the same concept.
Um, I 2 weeks ago I gave a talk at my alma mater to the entire design and art discipline, all the students that are taking the curriculum, and I walk them through basically all the different stages of my career, from detasseling corn and being a paper boy to being a chief creative officer at a national agency, right? And I didn't talk about each role, but I talked about the the kind of these are the types of things I learned at each of these career stages. And I had different roles inside those stages, and I just stayed flexible. But like, these are the key learnings, and these are how they apply to what I do today. And I started the whole conversation about, this is what I do today. Like, I wake up, I do this, I do that, I create this art, I connect with collectors, I do marketing, and kind of laid out, like, you know, the freedom that I have to put my energy where I see it best served, not just for me, but for my collectors and for my art and for my family, right? Like, I can walk my kids to school, which is amazing. Like, I laid that out, and then I said, then walked through my career and said, these are the different places where I learned the skills that allow me to do this today. And like, I think, you have to use all those lessons to kind of, at some point in your life, serve you. Like, you've been helping others achieve their goals for so long, and filling in their gaps of knowledge, and you learn from them in the process. I learned so much at PricewaterhouseCoopers as a director. Like, I learned how to run people's businesses for them. And the moment I had that realization of, like, wait a minute, if I take a half step to the left, this guy gets really upset because he's dependent on my subject matter expertise or ability to build a team or ability to talk to the client. When I step outside of his ring a little bit, he gets pissed off. Well, that's because he relies on the value that I'm creating for him, and there's 12 other partners that are looking at me the same way. Why am I the cog in their machines? Why can't I turn for myself? And why can't I turn for myself on things that I love to do? And that's where this glass art style, that's where this art came from. Was I took time and I took a pause from work. I left my role, took a pause, and said, holy shit, I've been focused on what's so important for other people for so long. I'm not quite sure I know what it is for me anymore. And once I took the time to find that, it came out in the art, it came out in the drawings. That childhood passion for drawing that I used throughout my creative career, all of a sudden was the thing that I could put all my energy into, and my ability to understand, market and think about my brand. And it just all kind of came together in because I had the space to do it. And it was a privilege to have that, right? Like, I worked so hard to get there, but like, it was a privilege to have time to say, stop, like, what's important.
Brian, you nailed it. I mean, I'm gonna clip that. That was so good. I think that's the essence of solopreneurship to me.
I'm just very inspired to hear what you've had to say because, this beautiful art that we've been seeing, for a couple of years in the space exists because you had that opportunity. And I'm just so excited to help as many other people as possible have that opportunity as well.
I have a question for you guys on something I've been thinking about, and I feel like I'm inspired by what you guys said this morning. I'm like choking on my coffee. It's amazing. Mentorship feels like something that doesn't truly exist in Web3 right now. Like I see it happen in teams and I see it happen in a little bit in communities, but that mentorship of passing on information and helping raise others so that you can go on to do greater things is, and we can all go on to do greater things. Like I feel like that's a missing piece in Web3 that just hasn't been manifested yet.
I 100% agree. And it's frustrating because I've met so many wonderful people, and I know that they have this genuine positive attitude, not like a toxic kind of fake positivity, but like a genuine positive attitude. They want something better for not just themselves and their families, but like the world, and they're willing to give back and help. I think a big part of it, honestly, is like this is such a. I think there's two things that come to mind. One is like a lot of the time this space can be so bottom line focused, like it's just such a money focused space that it's hard to like kind of take a step back and really think about like, like I mean, heck, like maybe the way you actually improve your bottom line is by being a mentor to someone, or really finding a good way to find yourself a mentor, right? Like, but I think one, it's like there's such an emphasis on money that it's hard to like be a little bit generous when you're with your time. But I think the more important thing or influential thing that came to mind first is like this is like, you talk about like remote distributed teams, asynchronous work, and just like kind of like the mindset of like a keyboard warrior or like an incel or like whatever you want to call it. Like I feel like that type of person is like really all over this space, and it's hard to connect with people beyond just like the social graph on chain of like we both hold the same JPEG. Like you really got to get out of your bedroom. You got to travel to these conferences. Some people are nervous, some people are introverted, some people have security. They're really privacy focused, or they're worried about like their keys getting stolen. Like who knows? But like it's hard to connect in the way you do in traditional industries in Web3. You really got to like force yourself to do it. And I think the mentorship thrives in like basically the opposite environment that is Web3. And I think if we can create more human connection in Web3, then the mentorship will naturally come. And I look at groups like Bright Moments, who like I only learned about recently because of this show, but like their whole thing is like if you want to get an NFT or any crypto asset or really just be a part of their community, like the way you enter it like has to be through an IRL experience. Like you're minting shit like IRL somehow, and that's like their one thing. And it seems like they have a really bright and like robust and tight knit community because of it, because they're fostering this human connection. And I think that naturally leads to mentorship. I think that's my suspicion, but maybe people have other takes on like why Brian and I feel the way we do about mentorship lacking here, because like I really do feel like it is. And that's a big reason why I created my community, the V3 Collective, because I finally got myself a mentor, and it like changed the game for me. And like I want to mentor other people or help them find, help them mentor each other. Just steward a collective mentor environment that I've found in other NFT communities, but like it's kind of rare because a lot of them are just like, you know, shit coins with like JPEG stamped on top of them.
Can I jump in about this whole mentorship question?
Do it.
Okay, I will. Great. I definitely agree with you. I think multiple things are true at the same time. That you can have amazing connections when you meet people at a conference, or when organize a meetup, or something like that. When you work on a project with people, you're baptized by fire, and that creates these connections as well. I've got a lot of truly incredible mentors in this space that I've never met in person. Because it's a lot harder for me to travel because I've got a lot of stuff to do locally. But I think that we can totally make mentorship happen, even when people haven't met. I think there's a lot of people in the space who can't necessarily travel. If you're from the global south, you might not be able to access a visa to travel to NFT NYC. If you are disabled, if you have kids or elders that you're looking after, if you don't have the money to travel, if that's money you need to use to pay your rent or to buy basic needs for yourself and your family. That's not always accessible, but there's so much we can do over DMs, Discord chats, Zooms, all the virtual attendance as well, and so it's all important. And you can build projects with people safely and securely without necessarily even knowing what their government name or ID is. And you can sort of build and organize based on trust and mutual reputation and stuff like that. I have just joined this community called Connect 3, which has this neat little thing that I'm really looking forward to. I haven't tried it yet, where you can sign up and get scheduled randomly, paired up with somebody to have like a one-on-one voice call. Just start
Oh,
talking
that's
with
cool.
people. It's way cool. Yeah, it's called Connect 3, and it's organized by a punk. Just trying to pull up Andrew. Andrew is the punk doing it. He's bullish punk on Twitter, and he's just doing that. So you just get randomly paired up with somebody, and then you have a call, and you might wind up talking shop, or you might wind up just like listening to music, but whatever. It's just a good opportunity to get out of your comfort zone and to help people. And also, I've learned a lot by mentoring people. I've mentored a bunch of writers. I've mentored a lot of people on social media marketing, and on lore building and story design and story architecture. And I don't mind doing quite a lot of that stuff for free, although I have limits for what I can do for my time, because I always learn when I'm teaching. I might get better at my own communications. I might realize as I'm walking through a process that there's like a huge problem that I haven't ever really noticed until I've been telling somebody else about it. So, I really believe in the concept that if you give, you get back. And so that's my thoughts on the issue. And so for me, it goes back to community mentorship and capacity building. Always goes back to that.
I've personally observed you like giving value, and like really just like leading by example, and like you're not just talking the talk, but you're walking the walk there. Like you genuinely do that, and I think a lot of people don't like. I think a lot of people say they do, but like I personally like seen you do that, and I think it's really commendable. One thing I always said, like there's something that like in addition to like learning from those experiences, it also just like feels good. Like one of the best vacations I went on in my life. And like I've been to a bunch of different countries. I've done a bunch of different things, but like honestly, like one of the very best vacations I've ever been on was when I went to Haiti to go like do a service trip for 2 weeks. We like built some houses, built some wells, taught some English in schools. Like it was amazing, and it was such like if you view it at face value, it's like wow, how generous of us to like pay our own time and money to go do this, right? Like, and but like I almost felt selfish about it in a weird way. Like I couldn't even like it felt selfish to do something that felt so good. I don't know how to describe that, and I'm not trying to like virtue signal here or say like, oh, look at me, I'm so amazing. I went on this mission trip. Like it genuinely felt so backwards to me. But there's something that almost feels selfish about being generous sometimes. I don't know if other people have ever experienced that, but it's a strange sensation.
I think that, that we should always listen to the little kind of questioning voices inside ourselves, because in this culture we don't get socialized really to tune into our own feelings. And so you hear that little uh-oh noise, or that little noise, and you don't always know how to tune in and listen to it. I think going on a mission trip is a great start. And, one of the things that I think of is I come from the Jewish tradition, and there's a Jewish scholar, sage named Maimonides, and he talked about these different levels of charity. And the highest level of charity is charity where you are giving, but you don't know who the recipient is going to be. And the recipient doesn't know who you are. And that means there's kind of a moral purity of giving that donation, and dropping that money into the wild, sort of relinquishing your agency over it. And so that's a really important thing to do. And, when we're talking about global aid, to the global south and stuff like that, I really think the best thing to do is to focus on capacity building. How can we invest in the economy there, in the infrastructure there, so people can build housing and the money from that goes back into the economy? How can we set up a global economic system where, it's not just based on resources being extracted from these countries, and the wealth going into, stores of value that don't go back to the populations there. And, if you're going to do mutual aid or charity, you can build individual connections with people on the ground there, and then you can have a lifelong relationship with those people. And I think that's, in terms of charity tourism and moving beyond that to kind of broader, deeper relationships, I think that's something we can all do. And I'm definitely not wagging my finger at you for going on a mission trip to Haiti. It was obviously a very moving thing, and you did good work. I just think, maybe how can we build how can we build crypto infrastructure in Haiti? How can we make sure that people can keep the value that they're creating there? So that's just sort of
100%.
my
I mean,
thinking. Yeah.
it felt like such a small thing at the end of the day. Like I felt like I was solving the problem almost in the wrong way. It was like I'm playing with a little shovel and a pail in the sand here when I need I need to be like terraforming with like intergalactic nuclear fusion bulldozers or something.
I like what's going on in your brain. I would totally watch this terraforming movie that you're talking about. But yeah, we have to figure out systemic solutions. There's another sort of phrase from Judaism that comes to mind, and I think this is somewhat apocryphal. It's like, you are not obliged to complete the work, but neither are you free to desist from it. So you can do your own little part. It's okay to have limits and boundaries, but just keep chipping away, and see what you can do to make the world a better place, and to look inside yourself and see what you can do to make yourself a better person. I'm always looking at myself. What am I overlooking? What assumptions am I making? How am I causing harm? How can I cause less harm? Um, and that's a lifelong process.
Yeah, you got to have consistency with this stuff, like a one off, like have your boundaries, but like yeah, consistency is like where the big difference is made. So what was the name of that the guy like who created or the name of these three different levels of charity, because I want to read more on it later.
I think it's 8. I mean, I could be wrong. I haven't read it in a dang long time, but his name was Maimonides. I think it's
Oh, okay.
Maimonedes. And I'm 100% sure I've gotten that wrong, but Google will help you from there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll consult ChatGPT.
And I just want to underscore as well that, if people have writing questions, or, want to figure out how storytelling plays into their own projects that they're building or other projects. I'm really happy to share information about that either here or on DMs or one-on-one, because we're all made of stories. And we're talking about that even now when we're talking about charity and stuff. What is the story we're telling about our giving? But it applies to our work, it applies to Web3, to our families, and everything else.
I just realized we lost Forever Punk.
Oh no, did he have another meeting?
I don't know. Either way, we are over the hour, and it is 12:12 here in Tokyo. So I've got to jump to bed. But I'd say my last thought here, and I'll hand it over to you if you have any closing thoughts. Is one thing I love about like what you're doing is this idea that like a lot of people think if you want to work in Web3, you got to like be like a Web3 person, and obviously you have a tremendous depth of knowledge of like NFT experience and Bitcoin crypto experience, Ethereum experience, whatever you want to call it. But like you also have an even deeper knowledge around like writing and communication, and like people forget that there are all these skills from like outside Web3 that are frankly just needed in Web3. And so for everybody out there who wants to enter Web3 and be a solopreneur or frankly join a company or startup or whatever, look at yourself holistically, look at the skills you have, the things you care about, or the skills you think you can learn. It doesn't have to be like being an engineer or a smart contract person. Like there's so many things that people just forget about. And writing like underpins everything, frankly, in my opinion. And so I think it's such a strong example of like these skills that can be brought into Web3 so that people who want to operate in it because they're passionate about it or curious about it, like don't count yourself out because like they're, it's just another industry. Like every every skill that's needed in every other business is also needed in Web3.
I agree completely with all of that. It is all the same skill set, and you can just learn so much by just watching other people work. You can learn what to do and what not to do. But I do want to sort of underscore that I am always open to working with new clients. I have room for a couple of new clients now because some projects are wrapping up. And, so if people want help transforming, whether it's a PFP collection, fine art, storytelling, social media marketing, anything like that, anything where you're talking about narrative design, from copywriting just to fixing the commas in your content, I'm very, very happy to help. And if you want to do that stuff yourself, I'm very happy to point you to free resources that you can use, because the better quality storytelling and writing that we have in the space, the better the whole space would be. So it is totally a plus EV action for me to be giving that back. But my DMs are always open for business inquiries, or if you need a bit of advice on writing for your project. I am just very happy to help, and I'm really happy that you guys gave me the opportunity to come on to this roundtable today and to get a little bit political and a little bit creative. And yeah, I'm really excited to hear about your projects as well, and I wish you all the best.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming. It really means a lot to have you out here supporting, the space I put together with Forever Punks, but also the Punks Roundtable, and then just being, benevolent with your time and sharing everything you've learned with Web3, because that's ultimately like the reason we created this. Like punks are a really, I think, bright, passionate, um, and wise group, and this space is designed to get that network and its surrounding network, together to share their collective wisdom with the world. And I think you've definitely done that. And I would love to have you up here again. And Brian, thank you for coming up and sharing your thoughts. I mean, it's really awesome. I'm gonna do my best to get somebody to clip what you said because I thought it was really special. And I think this Thursday I'm going to be traveling back from Japan to the States, or like getting ready for that. I think I depart like the next day, but I'm gonna be unavailable for the space this Thursday, so I'll see you all hopefully next week on Tuesday. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Thanks again for joining, Lorepunk, Brian, and everybody else in the room. If you want to hop up anytime next Twitter space, just hit me up. We'd love to have you.
Thanks
All
so
right.
much. You sleep well.
Yep. With that, I bid thee farewell.